Let's welcome State Senator Stephanie Chang to the show. She's a Democrat from Detroit, and State Senator Aric Nesbitt, a Republican from Lawton. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Senator Nesbitt, let me start with you since you authored the bill that was passed in 2019 to overhaul the reform of the auto insurance system. Proponents would say it's finally saving Michiganders on their auto insurance, and critics are saying it's exactly what insurance companies wanted. A lot of people are losing their coverage that need it. Do you think it's working as it was intended to?
Yeah, the goal all along was to provide more competition in the marketplace, lower the costs for drivers, seniors, and families here in Michigan. We've seen that cost go down here in the state, limit the lawsuits, and stop the price gouging of auto accident victims here in the state of Michigan. And so this is something where we've seen new companies have come in to sell insurance, and we've seen nearly 100,000 new drivers that hadn't had insurance before actually pick up insurance, because now we have choice in the system and there's real savings in the system.
The people who've been in serious accidents who are losing what they had before, I know you've heard from some of them. What do you say to them, especially to the ones who feel like they were lied to through all of this and they just feel like they've been left alone in this? Yeah,
they still have unlimited lifetime benefits under the system. They were grandfathered in. And this is something where I asked the Department of Insurance and Financial Services Director last week in my insurance subcommittee meeting, and she said that there has been about 131 complaints, and they have resolved 103 of those. And so I'm looking forward that at least 20, these other 28, they can move forward. Anytime you do a major reform of a 50-year-old law that had a one-size-fits-all government mandate, there are going to be some things where you're probably going to have to look back and do some tweaks, but I think it's something where we need to let this play out. We need to work and make sure that people have the benefits they need. And if somebody's having issues, I'd encourage them to call the Department of Insurance and Financial Services. It's toll-free, 1-833 Ask DIFS.
Yeah. Senator Chang, you introduced, along with two other lawmakers, a bill to help restore some of those benefits to accident victims. Making changes now like that, wouldn't the obvious effect cause people's auto insurance rates to shoot right back up?
So I guess there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. And first of all, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. One is that certainly some people's rates have gone down. Others have really not gone down. I talked to people in my district here in Detroit where some people's rates have gone up. Other people have only seen a slight reduction. So there's much more that we need to do. I believe that there's a lot that we can do to fix the law that is currently in place. But I think what's really important here is that we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people that I've interacted with in my own district, but also at the Capitol, at numerous events, who, rely on around-the-clock care in order to live and to have the quality of life that they deserve. And unfortunately, far too many of them are losing care, and we really need to do what we can to fix the law. So I'm really proud to, work alongside others, and it's actually a bipartisan effort in both the Senate and the House to really try to bring about some additional changes that are needed to make sure that we are using medical standards when we're talking about deciding whether or not someone can get covered for their care, and lifting the cap on attendant care. Again, some people need around-the-clock care, and that's what they need, and that's what they deserve.
Is there a middle ground on this? Obviously, the Speaker of the House doesn't want to touch it right now and announced that this week. But Senator Chang, do you feel like there is specifically what can be found here that could be agreed upon with both sides to make some changes that you think are necessary?
One of the things that I think is really interesting about this issue is that there's bipartisan support for change, and that so many of us have been hearing from residents in our district. So I actually do believe that if some of these initiatives were to be put on the board, you would actually see significant support. We don't necessarily know exactly what all the numbers would look like, but I think that there's a lot of support for the fact that we need to be able to take care of people in their greatest time of need. Obviously, when it comes down to the details of the number of hours or what types of care or what the fee schedule should look like, I think that there's a lot of differences of opinion there, but I do hope that there can be continued broad bipartisan support for making some additional changes.
Senator Nesbitt, I could correct me. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like you don't think there needs to be a middle ground here. But if there is anything, do you feel like this is going to go anywhere? That there could be more negotiations, and that the reform could end up being reformed a little bit?
Well, you look at the system, the law that was passed, and the reforms are working. They're driving down the cost of auto insurance. We've went from the $220 MCCA charge every year per car down to $86. People are seeing the $400 refund that the governor's parroting over the last in the coming weeks, and you're seeing that real savings being delivered back to drivers. But we don't want to go back to the wild west that was where they were able to charge whatever they wanted on healthcare, which drove up prices on our auto insurance. And you saw that with, for example, Mayor Duggan took a real big lead a few years ago on seeing these reforms through. And I remember him pointing out that under Medicare, MRI would cost about $400. That's what our seniors are charged under Medicare. And yet auto accident victims were seeing charges up to $3,500 to $4,000. And in this legislation that we passed, we said, okay, limit the charges to 200% of Medicare, twice of what our seniors are being taken care of for. And so that's something that, as you look at it, let's make sure as we look at any of these that we have predictability into the prices, and we also keep the cost down so that more people can afford insurance, and that we provide choice to the driving public that's out there.
Let me pivot real quick and quickly get your take on the inflation that's just kind of swamping people. I was speaking to seniors earlier this week about gas prices specifically, and I spoke to a woman who said, I'm a Democrat, but I like that Republicans have passed this bill to suspend the state gas tax. She said, but I'm disappointed it might get vetoed by the governor. Senator Chang, do you think that will make a difference for the people that are hurting right now, paying all this extra money with inflation costs?
Well, first, I think it's really important to highlight that, yes, of course, people are struggling. Gas has been extremely expensive. There is no denying that people are struggling with high gas prices. And so we need solutions that are going to work, that will save people real money, but that also don't, blow a giant hole in our transportation budget. Because we also know that in addition to high gas prices, people are also seeing potholes everywhere they go, and they're seeing bridge projects that need to get done, roads that need to get repaired. And so I believe that what we need is a responsible solution. And so that's why Senate Democrats have proposed instead looking at a holiday on the sales tax on gas on top of a pause on the federal gas tax. So, and ultimately that is a solution that would actually save people more money at the pump, while also preserving the money that we need to fix our roads and bridges.
Senator Nesbitt, I'll give you the final word on this. Do you think that's real savings for Michiganders if it's just a couple of bucks every fill up?
Hey, the state government has nearly $13 billion of extra money on the books between federal dollars and government state to taxpayer dollars. And I think if we can provide relief to consumers, for taxpayers and drivers here in Michigan, we should look at a way to do that. Yeah. And there's no reason why we can't lower the taxes on gas, backfill it with some of the money that we have now. In fact, the governor has a $2.5 billion tax cut on her desk right now that would lower income taxes and provide a child tax credit for families. And so I hope she signs it, but she has till Monday.
All right. I want to thank both of you for joining me this morning to talk about all these things. Very important to your constituents and all Michiganders. Thanks again.